Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Quixotic topic. As always, I'm your host, Daquan Peel, and today I'm joined by
Elias Derrickson.
and
Sawyer Rideout.
and today we are going to be talking about a couple of topics. The first one is what is some recent useful advice that you have gotten. And so, Sawyer, if you want to start the proverbial ball rolling.
I mean, recently I was told that I should stop procrastinating. It's really good advice, but have I followed it? No.
Of course not.
Oh yeah, no, staying on task in terms of just schoolwork here at the North Carolina School of Science and Math, and work in general is just a really hard thing to do. I've noticed. That might just be because I'm a teenager and I like to procrastinate, but it's hard to definitely stay on task. And so, Eli, same question to you. Some recent useful advice you've gotten.
Interesting. I was recently at the beach. Someone told me, don't touch dead jellyfish. I thought that was quite useful.
Makes sense, I mean.
Yeah.
Dead jellyfish? Well, I mean, does the
I think the singer's still there. Right?
Oh.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, it still hurts a lot.
you know,
wow.
from experience.
You've touched a dead
I
jellyfish?
stepped on one time.
Oh, yikes. So, like, did you kill it in the process of...
No, like, it's already dead. Like, pretty much most of the time when they're washed up, they're already dead. Like, that's why they're washed up. But, yeah.
I've never actually seen, like, a dead jellyfish on the beach. I think the biggest... No, never. I mean, I've been to the beach a multitude of times, mainly Myrtle Beach here in North Carolina, but one of the only things that has really I've encountered in terms of sea animals that I didn't like eat was like a crab. I was just playing around in the water, like walking on the beach. I like dipped my hand in, and a crab was like, "Yes, food," and like snipped it, and I was like, "Yeah!" And so I yeeted the crab like good like 80 yards away. It's
Oh my god.
I don't know how it's doing. It went straight into a bush. I think it might have died on impact, but
You have
yeah.
a follow-up interview with the crab?
Well, once I figure out how to speak crab, yeah, probably.
Like, you just kind of go like,
It's the snips, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people have used, in terms of like pop culture, people have used crabs to kind of like they talk, do like Morse code, kind of
Oh,
like their
like with
snips.
their pinchers.
Yeah, their pinchers is like
Their
snip.
claws, I guess.
do.
Yeah. In terms of the beach, there's been like I haven't been to the beach very recently, and so Eli, you want to talk to us more about your beach trip?
Oh yeah, it was good. So, yeah, so it was a while back. I mean, but we stayed at a family friend's house, and they live at Sunset Beach, so it's on the coast of North Carolina or somewhere.
Oh, fun.
It was good. They live on a canal, so hopped in the water. Yeah, my brother got stung by a few jellyfish.
Wow.
That's always fun.
There's just a lot of jellyfish there,
I
wasn't
know, right? It's crazy. I took a lot of walks on the beach at night because that's always fun.
Romantic.
Yeah, by myself though.
there? Were they
So,
long walks on the beach?
It was, yeah, I guess they were significantly long walks.
Yeah.
I don't know, Sawyer. When's the last time you were at the beach?
I went to the beach, I think over the summer, but it wasn't like, it was in California because my brother lives there. We were visiting him. I don't know, I'm not that big of a fan of the beach though.
Oh, really?
I never really like the beach. I like the mountains more. I like skiing. Not snowboarding though. I always end up on my butt.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
How different is skiing from snowboarding?
Oh yeah, it's
very.
very different.
Because I've never done either.
Cause like when you're snowboarding, right, your feet are like locked in line. Like when you ski, you can kind of like move them around, you know,
Right.
like and like separate and move them farther apart and closer. But like when they're snowboarding, they're just like set distance apart, and like you can't rotate them, you can't do anything. You just move your whole hips, and that's when I always fall because I try to move my hips too much, and then I just woo, I'm gone.
So, is snowboarding just like significantly different from skateboarding?
Oh, snowboarding and skateboarding are very, very
They're
similar.
pretty similar, except like with
You
snowboarding.
can move your feet in skateboarding.
Yeah, but like
Can't
with
do it in
snowboarding though,
skateboarding.
to slow down, you kind of like you go sideways with your way down the mountain, you know, which
Yeah.
like you can do like a power slide on a skateboard, but it's just a different feeling.
And so is that just because of like how many harnesses there are like on your foot?
Yeah.
Okay. I've always wondered like what goes into like who looked at a skateboard and was like, yeah, we could put this on snow. Like that transition. Well, what came first? The skateboard or the snowboard?
I think. So I think
Definitely
it was surfboard and then
Surfboard.
skateboard and then snowboard.
Okay.
or surfboard,
I think-
snowboard, skateboard.
I think snowboards were after though.
I think you might be right.
I don't know though, because I'm pretty sure people were just like, yeah, it's skiing. That is what you do on snow. And then somebody was like, what if instead you surf the snow?
Because skiing is also like pretty old too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what if they? So was it like skis, surfboard, snowboard, skateboard?
I
Probably.
think it was surfboard. That's actually a good question.
Yeah, because
I
like
think
Because like skis and
surfboard
surfboards are like not that like related.
Mhm.
I mean like they're
Maybe they originated at the same time.
yeah. So what was kind of like? I guess what do you guys think? In terms since like the surfboard came first, like we're all kind of in agreement there. What do you think kind of made that catalyst in this is like, yeah, we're gonna start having fun at the beach because like now like today in 2020 in current year we see that the beach is like a very consumerist kind of thing where it's just like everyone's just kind of there to have fun really like the beach is like a destination especially in places close to the equator like Florida or the Gulf of Mexico or California and so like I guess what do you guys think went into that kind of development in terms of like yeah we're gonna start having fun at the beach.
well, I don't know, because like if you think about it, like back in like the 1800s or whatever, everybody was like terrified of the ocean, and like because nobody knew how to swim.
Right.
So like they were like if you go in the ocean you're pretty much dead. But like I don't know.
That's a good question.
I actually know like a lot of people who are still well not still as if like they've been alive since the 1800s but people who still have that fear of just ocean and the water.
Yeah.
I actually like never got it. I'm team beach definitely. I love the beach but that's
There we go.
probably because of the fact that I haven't had very much exposure to the mountains. I'm sorry. So you're like the most I know about mountains is like how they're formed. I've never actually been to one per se, but I've been to my fair share of beaches, and like ever since a young age, I always like enjoyed just water in general. In fact, I've oriented a lot of my life around its principles and philosophies. But in terms of like just flowing and being generally cool, low specific heat, and so I kind of wonder, Sawyer, if you could kind of vouch for mountains, like what exactly do you find the appeal?
I mean, so like at the beach there's like 400 people within like 30 feet of you.
This is true.
Depends
But,
on
like-
the beach. Depends on the beach.
Okay,
That
but
is
like
also
at
true.
most beaches, because they're popular beaches for a reason. Like they have like good waves or something, so there's gonna be a lot of people there because they want to experience like the nice beaches. But if you go to a mountain, it's like there's nobody there because like if it's like a ski mountain, everybody's going like downhill, so they're going like past you immediately. Or like you can even like pull off into the woods a little bit more, and you're basically just like you can be there and just like kind of enjoy. I also love like trees. I just love nature. And like obviously the beach has nature, but you can't see because it's on the water.
Right.
So like if you're just on a mountain, you can just look out over like everything and just see it all.
Have you ever been like deep sea diving before?
I've been diving, but not like super deep. Like I'm certified to like 180 feet or something like that.
Oh wow. How was that?
It's really cool. It's like you get to see all like the little like coral reefs and the fishes and stuff. And I do like that because like same thing. There's like not that many people.
Sea sharks.
I have.
You have
Mostly
Oh, wow.
nurse sharks though.
Oh yeah.
Nurse sharks are super chill.
Are they? Oh, so they're not that scary.
Nah, nurse sharks just kind of like so like the reason that like okay so like great white sharks they like swim around all the time and like the whole thing is if they stop swimming they die or whatever.
Right.
It's because like they use ram ventilation, which is when like they just swim and then push the water through their gills by swimming.
Right.
But nurse sharks don't do that. They just breathe normally. So like you just see them kind of like on the ocean floor, just kind of sitting there, and they're really cool.
What do they look like?
They're kind of like it's like when you see like a shark like in the movies, except a lot smaller and pretty cute, honestly.
Oh, word.
And they kind of coil up a little bit, like not quite like a snake, but like you ever see like a dog when they're like really like
Scared.
laying down on, or like not when they're scared, but when they like lay down and they're a little cold, they kind of like curl in that little ball thing. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Okay, cool. And so, I wanted to touch on mountains more a little bit. And so, you kind of just really value that sense of isolation from people,
Yeah.
in a sense.
Well, it's like the freedom aspect, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, it's not just like being away from all people. Because like when I'm out in the mountains, it'll usually be like a family trip.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'll be there with my family.
Right.
But like, it's just kind of like it's a little bit about like the privacy and a little bit about like the, just like peace of it.
Yeah. The sense of just kind of just being there.
Mm-hmm.
So, when the mountains that you do visit, I'm assuming are mainly like fairly high altitudes because there's snow everywhere,
Yeah.
Right. So, have you ever been to any kind of, I guess, not high mountains? I think they call those hills.
I mean, I guess I live in like the western part of North Carolina, which is pretty. It's not. I mean, like the very west is like really mountainous because there's like the Rockies. I mean, not the Rockies, the Appalachian Mountains.
Wow.
That's what I was thinking
I
of.
wouldn't know.
Rockies are in Colorado. Anyway, so like the far west part of North Carolina is like super mountainous, but like I live kind of at the base of like Boone, which is a pretty big.
So you've got some like hills, I guess.
So yeah, we've got like hills, but we're all like surrounded by mountains on all sides.
Okay.
So it's really cool.
Cool. And so, Eli, I want to come to you for a bit.
Okay.
You are also a fellow beach person, and so I
Yes.
kind of wanted to find out, what do you kind of appreciate about the beach?
It's definitely the water.
Uh,
I find the same aspects that Sawyer, or the same freedom that Sawyer finds in the mountain, in the water of the beach.
Yeah. Definitely.
There's definitely like the resistance that's more so than air, but you can just like sprawl out and let it hold you,
Yeah.
and you have like it's just freedom in the water. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting how you can find like that sense of isolation in both of these places. And so, Sawyer, I want to hear your experience. You very much value in terms of like your vacation choice, that kind of being able to plug in to nature. How have you seen that kind of change as years have progressed, in a sense of like the increasing presence of tourists or just consumerism or just people at the mountain in general? Have you like seen that? How have you kind of dealt with it in a sense?
I mean, like we would sometimes go to like Colorado because like there's like really good mountains to ski on there, the Rockies. This time actually the Rockies, not the Rockies. But you go to like, you go up to the very top of the mountain, and like it used to be like only the super duper like hardcore skiers would like take the weird chairlifts all the way up to the very top of the ski, like the backside of the mountain. But now you get like everybody doing it, and at the top they all stop to take like photos and everything, and it's just, it kind of changes it. But once you actually start going down the mountain, it's like there's still way less people than like on the front side of the mountain. So if you like, once you actually start going back down the mountain, it's really like the same as how it's always been. It's just like you and whoever came with you, like whoever you brought on your trip with you, like your family or your friends.
And then there's also kind of like the added thrill of like going down a mountain.
Yeah.
Would you say, I don't know if you've been to like an amusement park in a sense, or like roller coasters, would you say that like that thrill of just going down and experiencing G's is the same at an amusement park?
It's kind of similar, yeah, but like when you're at an amusement park, you don't really have like control over where you're going.
Right.
Yeah, but like
On the mountain, you definitely have control.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to.
And to touch on the tourists of the mountain, when I went to Keystone, Colorado, just a few weeks ago, there were tons of tourists, and the lines were like filled going up to the mountaintop. But once you start going down the mountain, I think everybody just fades out, and you're just focusing on your like breathing, and like the wind in your face, I guess.
Getting those sick jumps.
Yeah, those sick jumps.
Jumps.
Weaving through the trees.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. This might just be because of my literal inexperience of ever being on a mountain, but I've always thought that like the jumps were strictly like an X Games sort of thing, whereas like that they do that there because it's extreme. How does I guess, like, what does that feel like to like jump off of a mountain? Well, not literally, but literally.
It's like, it's really fun, and a lot of times, like, most of the jumps that you'll find on like a regular ski slope are just like people went down like this weird janky pathway, and then like when they reconnected back with like they happen to be at a different height, so they just kind of whoop, or like something like that.
It gives you a little air, but it's nothing like.
It's nothing crazy.
Yeah, like a 20 foot, 20 meter jump. Nothing crazy like that.
So, when it comes to like learning how to ski, I'm sure there's billions and billions of instruction manuals, but like how do they prep you for that? Just kind of jump.
I just kind of like, so I was raised like in the north in like New York, so we would go skiing kind of often, and like as a kid my dad would just like, you have like your ski poles, he would hook them together in a way that he could kind of like hold on to me, and then he would just kind of like go for it, and I'd be like, what? And then he'd just kind of push me down the mountain and follow me. But
I guess that's the way to do it.
So it's
more of like a just hopped on.
Yeah, very kinetic.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to tourism, Eli, I kind of want to go to you for this one. How have you experienced tourism kind of... Well, really, has tourism ever changed at the beach? I mean, people are always at the beach. People are at the beach right now. How has that kind of affected your experience of that release that you get in the water?
It's... Alright, so in the water, of course there are people, like, lining the shores, you know, in the water, playing with their family and everything. There are less people out, like, deeper in the water, so that's usually where I go. And then I can just, like, put my feet up and, like, let the waves move me, and just, like, that flow, that, absence of rigidity is, it just, like, all the people, like, fade away, and you're just alone. And it's great.
So it's about the same.
Yeah.
Cool. Me personally, I find the beach to be really fun actually because of the people. I think that in some cases my experience has been elevated because of the people that I've met on vacations to beaches. There's of course, like, we don't really talk that much now because we all live in different states, but I remember on cruise ships I would be able to make like really tight friends with people on the boat, and then we would get off, and sometimes I would like see them in the kind of the zone designated for tourists to be in, and it's like, don't get too close to the boat or don't go too far this way. It's interesting to see how, like, in foreign countries, it's how regulated the tourists they have to be, so that people don't, you know, accidentally bring coronavirus 2 back or stuff like that. But the second coming. Coronavirus 2 now with more virus. But being able to, I guess, kind of see those people also be in the water, and I guess like share that experience with them, I've found to be like very fulfilling in a sense. And that might just be because of like how I am. I just like people. I'm not very misanthropic, but I do think that the tourism in some places can be a benefit, but like for the most part, especially with ecotourism movements, ecotourism, I'm sorry.
I was like, what?
Yeah, with ecotourism movements coming out and such, I can definitely understand why it would be overall detrimental. And speaking of detriment, I kind of want to talk about the dangers of this kind of heights, literally in some cases, that you have to go to find that sort of release. The dangers of skiing, because like, of course, and the dangers of beaches. The dangers of beach going. And this kind of takes us back to our first question, but what was kind of some significant tips and tricks that helped you kind of maneuver through that? I know we touched on this lightly, Sawyer, with you being able to learn how to jump. But if you'd like to expound on that a little bit.
So like, the biggest one was just kind of like, a lot of it was like, specifically with skiing, and like, kind of applies in life, but like, just, you gotta realize that like, the snow or the ground or whatever isn't really that hard anyways, so if you fall, I mean, cool, whatever, you fell. And also, like, you have to realize, like, especially if you're on, like, vacation or something, like, you're never going to see these people ever again. So it doesn't really matter if you embarrass yourself.
Right.
Because, like, you're only embarrassing, like, to your own self. Like, if you see another person fall, or, like, if you see another person, like, completely wipe out at the beach, you just, like, you know, you look at them and you're like, whoops, okay, cool. And then you don't think about it, like, again for the rest of the day. But if you yourself fall, then that's, like, all you think about. But if you just kind of have to learn, like, I'm the only one really thinking about it, so it doesn't really matter anymore. So.
Cool. And so, Eli, on to you.
Tips and tricks I've learned whilst at the beach.
Whilst the beach going.
Yes, whilst the beach going.
Whilst being a beacher. Is that the name? Beacher?
Beach boy.
Beach boy?
Yeah. A surfer girl. Yeah. From a young age, I've always gone on family vacations, like with my cousins and such, and we'd always play beach games because, you know, my grandparents live near the beach, so that's where we go. So we'd play a game called Submarine and Airplane, or Airplane, you know.
Yeah.
But basically, there was a one leader, and we'd all be out in the shallows or like the deep, anywhere really. And so when a wave comes, if it's big enough, someone will yell submarine, and we all dive under.
Oh wow.
And then if it's like small enough, you yell airplane, and everyone goes over. Or if it's big enough, you yell airplane, and whoever's like the only one to make it over without dying.
Wow, this is pretty.
Wins the game.
How many cousins did you start with?
It was a pretty high stakes game.
Yeah. But essentially, that taught me how to avoid being caught up in the wave. So it taught us like go under or over if you're in trouble or you're like worried.
Yeah. So like pretty much how to wrangle with the waves.
Wrangle with the waves.
Yeah. For me, me also being a beach boy, I think one thing.
Please continue.
I think one thing that helped me out was with my dad. You know how like the moon controls the tides, and so like during a full moon the tides are the strongest. My dad and my brother, or rather my dad, my brother, and I, proper grammar, we would go out into the ocean like during the full moon tides, and like the waves would be like super duper strong, and so like I would be like right next to my dad, and my brother would be too, and we would just try and like not get knocked over by the wave. It's a very simple game, kind of like Airplane Submarine, but one thing that I really, I guess, took solace in was the fact that my dad was always like within a 5-meter range of us always, so like if one of us kind of just got absolutely destroyed by a wave, he wouldn't be far. And so that kind of, I think what helped me kind of manage the waves or manage the ocean in a sense was just having that sense of like I'm not here alone. And then that again goes into like the whole tourist thing is if you see someone in a crisis like actually at the beach, is like usually if you have a soul at least you would go like at least either contact help or try to help them.
Yeah.
I think you can get very intimate with nature very quickly. With the beach, especially with stuff like riptides and like undertow, I think that's the same thing. And then also with like the mountains, I think I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like scared of the mountains, but one thing that would make me kind of apprehensive is just kind of being there in the woods, just like alone. It's like going at high speeds. But I can see how with the development of regulation of people, in a sense. I mean, when you think about it, tourism is just like a really, really big HR department. It's like, how can we manage like these thousands and thousands of people going in and out of one place? And so once you get that down, I can see why it wouldn't necessarily be that scary. But in the essence of travel, I want to ask you guys, what are some, I guess, kind of really wow destination spots where you were a tourist? potentially excluding just the mountains and the beach? Or were some cool places you visited?
Well, I went to like parts of Europe over the summer.
Oh wow!
Like Berlin, the Czech Republic, and Switzerland. It was like part of like our school. My old school did like a field trip in the summer, but like through a different organization.
To Europe?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like through I don't know if you know EF Tours. I think it's Education First Tours, something like that.
I would think it stands for Europe Forward.
Well, they do other places. Like somebody else here did one to Hawaii, I think.
Oh,
with
fun.
the same organization. But like we went to Berlin. It was really crazy because a lot more people actually spoke English really well than you would think. And so like you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna have to like order this food. I'm gonna like try to figure out how to say it, and they'll be like, hey, what do you want? And I'm like,
I see.
And like they can also like they can straight up tell that you're like a tourist and like that you're American because like they'll like be speaking German to the person in front of you, and then they look at you, and then they immediately switch to English before you even say anything.
Wow.
And it's just kind of funny. But yeah, it was really cool.
Okay. And so what about you, Eli?
I think 2 years ago now, my family and I went to Italy. It was a big trip. I think there were about 24 of us.
Oh wow.
So we stayed at some villas in Tuscany, and oh my gosh, the mountains were just beautiful. Not to
switch sides.
Yeah, not to switch sides. Or anything. Yeah, but we toured some of the major cities like Florence and Rome, and did some wine tours. Some cheese, which I can't eat because I'm allergic, but everybody else had cheese. Yeah, but Rome was definitely my favorite place. Just because it's just the city, all the city noise and the city life, especially at night.
The atmosphere.
Yeah, it was just really relaxing. Just great.
I dig that. I think one of the more interesting places that I visited was Missouri. One time my father was on a business trip, and my dad was like, yeah, I'm gonna take my family. And so he took his family. And so we were in Missouri, and so my mom was looking for places for stuff to do while my dad did business. And so we went to this one museum. I have absolutely no idea what it was called, but I'll probably never forget it because I remember pulling up and like I was playing I think Rhythm Heaven on my DSi, and like I looked up and there was like a bus, like, or a replica of a bus. I don't know, I didn't get to see it, and it was like hanging off the edge of the building. And I was like, wow, this is an interesting place. And it was, I think it's called like the Children's Museum something, which makes sense because when this happened I couldn't have been any older than like 15. So I was like, I saw that bus and I was instantly, my curious brain was like, yes. And so we went in, and it was honestly like a really, really cool place. I think one of the most enjoyable things I get from trips is just like the knowledge of another place, in a sense, and that can be applied to a lot of things like absorbing culture or tasting new foods, but honestly just like museums. I think in my future, like in my life, one thing that I'm definitely going to do is go around the world to visit their museums, because like, what is a museum if it's not just kind of like a monument or representation of something, of a culture or a place, you know what I mean? Because like it's chock full of artifacts, it's chock full of scientists, artists, and historians all like pulling together information for public use. I think that honestly museums are probably like one of my favorite public government institutions, right next to libraries. I don't know if libraries are a government institution, don't quote me on that.
It depends. A lot of like museums and libraries can both be public or government owned. It just kind of depends on.
Okay, well then yes, those are some of my top 2 or top 5 favorite places to go, in a sense, when I'm traveling, especially when I'm traveling. And so going back to the Children's Museum in Missouri, it was really cool because like when you first come in, I think you would look to the left and there was like this just ginormous turtle, that was like at least 100 or something years old, and like at that point, I don't think I've ever seen anything that was older than 100 and was like a biotic factor. And so like just being able to see that was cool. And then there also like every floor there was a slide down to like the ground floor, which was great. I don't think I rode it. I can't remember. If I did, it was like really fast and underwhelming. But yeah, I think that was probably one of my favorite, I guess, destinations. Another one was the Smithsonian in DC. That was wow. We could be here for a while talking about that. But speaking of talking, we are actually starting to run out of time. This will be a Quixotic topic mini episode, I think. That's what I'm going to title this. But moving forward, one of the other topics that we wanted to touch on is procrastination. And we procrastinated from the original topic of this show a bit. We started talking about travel. But I wanted to ask the both of you, what do you guys do when you procrastinate? What is your kind of like go-to activity, or what do you just end up doing?
A lot of times I just end up like pretty much just goofing around with my friends, honestly.
Yeah, that's a vibe.
Which like, I mean, it's healthy for like your mental health, but like then you have like 4 hours of homework still, and it's like 3 a.m. and you're like,
this is unhealthy.
For me, I usually just peruse YouTube or Netflix. Sometimes I'll go outside and hang out with some people. You know, I'm not a total hermit. But yeah, that's mostly what I do.
Right. I think for me, my go-to when it comes to procrastinating is either browse social media. My go-to is probably Instagram, definitely. I tend to just kind of mindlessly just flick my thumb down, see what's going on with people's lives I don't really care about at this point. But also for memes, that's a pretty big factor, honestly. And another thing that I like to do is play video games, because I think that video games are really good and really bad as a double-edged sword, in the sense that they can take up a lot of time and like you don't feel it in a sense. Like I can remember plenty of time back in middle school when I would get home, I would like eat something, and then I would like start playing Skyrim, and like of course I would get home around like 3 to 4 o'clock every day. And so it would be bright outside, and so I would be playing the game, and then like I would look out the window and it would be dark. It would just be pitch black, and that's not just because like I was playing for 2 hours. I was actually playing for like 7 hours. I really appreciate the ability for video games to let me just kind of zone out. I tend to gravitate towards them because like my thought processes are very like complex, and like I do like really like just a whole bunch of think for sometimes too long, and so video games really help me to just kind of unplug and like focus on something else. I think it's
interesting.
Yeah, therapeutic in a sense. I think that when it comes to procrastination, a lot of people tend to do stuff that gives them or do stuff that is inherently like therapeutic for them in a sense, because like the both of you talked about socialization, in the sense that like, because going and talking to other people, and that's like psychologically known to be therapeutic. That's something that gives people a lot of relief and releases the chemicals in the brain that help to reduce stress.
So you said video games are your like therapeutic method?
Yes, I would say that.
Procrastination. Interesting. To touch on video games, it was my procrastination method for a long time, but I'd go like you said, I'd start like when it was light out, and then no time flat, it'd be pitch black outside,
right? And
wow, I just lost tons of time, and that's why I like cut it out, because I felt like I was wasting too much time playing video games. But it's interesting that it's therapeutic for you.
Yeah, it's good to be able to find that balance and like know when to stop. I think that's very important in like not procrastinating, because like I think, and this is kind of a hot topic, a hot quixotic topic, but I think a lot of people put kind of enhanced negative stigma on procrastination and video games, but mainly procrastination. I think that everyone like sees procrastination as like an absolute total like bad thing that should never happen ever. But seeing as how it happens like super massive, like everyone does it. Like I know very few people who procrastinate. Like I can probably name one person who I don't think procrastinates, but that's just because I don't know them very well. I'm pretty sure they do, like once I start talking to them. So I think that because procrastination is something that's so like common, that it's probably a natural brain process in a sense to procrastinate, to like have things that you need to do and not do them.
Because like if you have something you need to do, you're probably getting a little stressed, and then your brain is like, I should go do this thing, which helps me unstress.
Stress, yeah.
Right.
And I think procrastination's good in that sense, but there's a point where procrastination can become, you procrastinate too long, and then the stress load is overwhelming because
and it just ends up being more unhealthy in the long run. And so I think that we live in a society, would actually benefit more from not necessarily, I guess, demonizing procrastination as much as trying to encourage healthy procrastination. It's just like like instead of telling people like you should never waste time ever, it
should be something more like, hey, take a break for like 30 minutes.
Yeah. I think that this would probably be I should probably like file a copyright on this, but it'd be like a really good motivational speech of like teaching people not waste time, but how to waste time. I can see that already as like a book title, like how to waste time effectively. In fact, it probably already is. I'm sure there's someone who's an enterprising person who has already thought of this idea before me and has capitalized on it. If not, don't listeners of the podcast, because I will.
Yeah.
And
do a little TED talk on it.
TED talk. Well, I would figure that there would be TED Talks on it, because
welcome to my TED Talk that I didn't write until the night before.
That would be a great way to start it. But like, it would also be kind of ironic because obviously they didn't start the night before. I wonder how many TED Talks like actually were rushed, because like I've listened to my fair share of them, and like it's never felt in a sense like this was like sloppily put together. But I think that might just be because of the notoriety and like the status that a TED Talk kind of has. It's like if you're going into a TED Talk, you're going to get some professional talking about something that they know about for like 5 to 9 minutes, usually.
Yeah.
I will, and of course I have to add the moniker usually, because like I just haven't encountered a TED Talk that has been, I guess, sloppily put together. And on that subject, I would like to thank the both of you for coming to my TED Talk. This has been the Quixotic topic, and as always, I'm joined by, well, not as always, but today I'm joined by
Sawyer Rideout
and
Elias Derrickson.
And as always, this is where I'm supposed to say that one. This is DP from the QT, signing out.